Hello, everyone, and welcome to WILA, the series where I discuss, analyze, and talk about the things that I like about movies. I am your host, Daniel Coles, coming from the basement of our rental house, and today I will be talking about what I like about Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu. All right, second review. If you guys haven't listened to the first review or even the introduction, they are uploaded right now, so if you have time, go ahead and listen to it. I appreciate that. Otherwise, let's get into this. Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu. This is a Lucasfilm production that was distributed by Disney. It's directed by Jon Favreau, written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, and it's based on Star Wars created by George Lucas. It was released on the 22nd of May, 2026, and it is rated PG-13 for sci-fi violence and action. Okay, first off, in all honesty, when I heard the announcement for this show, I didn't know how to respond. The Mandalorian show is great. I love the show. I've been a fan of it ever since it first premiered back in November of 2019. That was also the same day that Disney Plus started. It was one of the flagship releases that I guess a lot of people tuned into Disney Plus for. So I was really excited about the Mandalorian show, and the first two seasons are great. Had a little bit of a rough third season, in my own opinion, and probably to the opinions of others. And it kind of feels like the hype for the show and some of the characters are slowly starting to trickle away. Not to say that the show is bad right now, or has been bad. No, it still is great. I love it very much. I love how it revolutionized how TV shows can be made on a limited set and a budget. Plus, also the story that it tells and the characters that we follow are very engaging. They're characters that we can root for, that we can connect with, and I love the dynamics between the two main characters. It's a great show. I love it. But I did, when they announced that the first Star Wars movie in almost 7 years would be revolving around the Mandalorian and Grogu, I mean, it didn't really surprise me that Disney would go this route because, hey, the Mandalorian and Grogu, especially with Grogu, they made a lot of money. They were pretty popular, and they're still popular even to this day. Not as much as it was 5 years ago, but still, I mean, it makes sense that they would go that route. But also at the same time, I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't sure what to think of a Mandalorian movie. I mean, the show has a huge budget and it revolutionized high-end technology to film scenes that take place in exciting locations without having to leave a studio. For instance, because of the use of the volume tech. And for those of you that don't know what the volume tech is, it is a series of LED screens and a stage. Set on a stage is a big, giant projection of screens surrounding the characters in the middle of the scene that projects images of the surrounding environments around them. So they're basically surrounded by a huge LED wall. However, the trick is, and this is actually pretty cool of how they created this technology. There's a whole documentary series about the making of the first season of The Mandalorian, and it's fun to watch from a filmmaking perspective because with the volume, wherever you point the camera, it adjusts the depth of field, the location of the area associated with the positioning of where the camera is on set, if that makes sense. I hope that I explained that correctly. But If you point the camera at a specific angle within the volume, you will see in the screen or on the monitor itself exactly how you would see a particular place if you were to actually be in that, if that if that location and setting was real. I'm probably not the best person to explain this, but needless to say, the volume itself really changed the game of how TV shows can be made, and it seems like a lot of movies and shows since the release of The Mandalorian and the creation of the volume have used that technology to kind of cut back on, or at least kind of make filming a little bit more simpler. But anyway, uh, so this show revolutionized that technology, brought it into the game, and then you know every episode had, because of the volume and because of the production that went to every single episode of these seasons, every episode had the scale and production of an actual movie. It was just shorter in length. So I was confused with the announcement of this movie a few years back. I mean, yes, I understand. I still understand why Disney was pushing for this movie, and yes, I knew that they would try to stretch this IP out for as long as it can make money. But again, given that this is the first Star Wars movie in almost 7 years, I was fearful that it would either be rushed, lackluster, and not have that big of an impact on the movie market as a Star Wars movie is probably expected to be. Uh, Needless to say, I wasn't too thrilled or anticipating the release. Not to mention the title, The Mandalorian and Grogu. I don't know. I thought they could have made something a little bit more intriguing, something more captivating, something that's more related, or at least fitting to the setting of the series. I saw someone say the Clan of Two, or Clan of Two probably would have been a better title. I mean, that seems stronger. But either way, that being said, I did end up watching this movie in IMAX with my mom, since she loves the Mandalorian show and hasn't watched a whole lot of movies in the theaters in the past few years. Uh, so I took my mom to the movies. She was very excited to go watch it, and I was excited that she was excited. And you know what? I did end up having a good time watching this movie. Did it really need to be made? Honestly, I don't think so, because the whole movie feels like 4 episodes of an unreleased season crammed together into one feature-length film. I think I read somewhere that Jon Favreau actually wrote out season 4 after season 3 concluded, but then Disney decided to go to the movie route. And so I guess they took elements from that season and made it into the film. I might be wrong about this, but that's how it feels, because there's a lot of momentum changes and even points of the story that kind of concludes what you would think would be a whole movie long conflict. But so it kind of felt like 4 episodes. It felt like the season 4 of The Mandalorian, but without the filler episodes, if that makes sense. Um, the movie had all the hallmarks of what made the Mandalorian show popular, with the exception of a couple of moments that worked better and best in the theaters. So it's not like it was breaking any new grounds. Sometimes a simple and enjoyable movie in the theaters, especially IMAX, is all you really need on some days. I enjoy going to the movies with my mom because, again, I love watching her reactions more than the movie itself. And it was pretty fun. Just kind of looking over, just glancing over and seeing her either like jump at a specific scene, or I don't know, need to like turn her eyes away, or just kind of like, bring, kind of almost like she's like biting her nails at a very tense moment. It's very enjoyable. If I had to say, I love watching movies in the theaters, but I love watching movies in the theaters with other people. I love watching other people's reactions to movies in the theaters more than the movie itself, especially if I'm watching it more than once. I love seeing people's reactions. It's enjoyable. It's a it's an activity. It's a leisure activity that I love to share with other people. It's fun. Anyway, that's my short little story introduction to this movie, connection to this movie. So without without further ado, let me get a little bit of sip of water. And let's get into what I like about Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu, non-spoiler edition. Full disclosure, when I was rewatching the intro and the K-pop Demon Hunters review that I did, when I was listening back to the videos and editing them together, I realized that I smacked my lips and my tongue to the top of my mouth quite a lot. And so I don't know if anybody else noticed, but I'm going to do my absolute best to try not to smack my lips as much as possible, just for your guys' sake and mine too. I can't promise anything. But anyway, let's talk. First thing I want to talk about, what I like about this movie. Let's talk about Grogu, aka Baby Yoda. I think it's something. It really speaks to the impact that you had on modern day culture itself when you a character that you have created is only referred to as Baby Yoda by a huge majority of people. Grogu, the name of Grogu was introduced into episode 5 of season 2, but still people call him Baby Yoda. And sometimes I even still refer to him like that because it's easier. That's how we first remembered. But one of the first things people immediately think about when they hear the words The Mandalorian is Grogu himself. When the first episode of the show was released and debuted in late 2019 with the start of Disney Plus, the ending of the episode revealed its flagship character that shaped the rest of Disney consumerism, and was the face of Disney's Star Wars, Baby Yoda. I mean, he didn't have a name to himself until season 2. He was referred to as the child in the scripts and on set during the production, but everybody referred to him as Baby Yoda. Yeah. Again, it wasn't until episode 5 of season 2 that was released on November 27th, 2020, which, by the way, is my birthday, that we find out his name, his actual name is Grogu. So the biggest selling point of The Mandalorian, the show itself, is the dynamic between the Mandalorian, his name is Din Djarin, and Grogu. It's a father and son duo that's between a hardened bounty hunter who develops a soft side towards the child. It's a dynamic that we kind of seen before, but we've never seen that type with this type of species of alien in the Star Wars universe. It's a great, honestly, it really is the best selling point for the show. Its greatest strength is the relationship between Din Djarin and Grogu. That same type of dynamic is shown through the movie. There is, like the relationship between Din Djarin and Grogu. It definitely shows that they have been around each other for a while. They solidified their relationship with each other where they are father and son. They are the iconic duo. They work together. They work off of each other. It's great and it's strong. I like how they continue that into this movie. It's fun to watch them do that. In this movie, Grogu still has that childlike wonder with the worlds, with the interactions of the worlds and the people around him. He can't speak yet because Yoda's species can grow up to hundreds of years old. So even though technically he is around 50 years old within this timeline. He's still an infant who can walk but can't talk. But he can walk and grunt and do flips and tricks and use the force against his enemies. There's still a great dynamic between him and Din throughout the movie. Unfortunately, even though we do see some good moments between them, there aren't a whole lot of special moments and interactions between them like we have seen being developed through the first 2 seasons of the show. There is a section of the movie that is purely around just Grogu. Like Grogu is just just the sole focus. It's probably like a good 10-ish minutes, up to 10 minutes, maybe less, maybe a little more. And they do actually do a great job of making you forget that you're watching essentially a puppet / animatronic / prop walking around the stage. The filmmakers actually used a lot of practical effects with Grogu's movements. Like there's a lot of puppetry work, which I imagine will have a bunch of sticks of people hiding inside of the sets or underneath the soundstage with sticks and moving either his hands or his legs and moving his body. There's also some animatronic moments, most notably with his mouth. His mouth does move, and they actually have developed really good motors and like robotics to make his mouth move in dynamic ways as a natural mouth would. And there's also just the prop of Baby Yoda himself. There's a scene where Grogu is crawling up the corner of a wall to get into a small exhaust point. A good portion of that scene uses a puppet they carried up the wall using either strings or attachments coming from the other side of the wall. When you see close-ups of Grogu walking up or crawling up, the corner of the wall, the way that he shuffles and he's kind of stiff, it definitely does show that it is special effects and is actually practical being used. And then there's a wide shot that cuts immediately to, it cuts to a wide shot of Grogu actually finishing the climb and climbing into the exhaust point, where you can actually tell, okay, he's moving a little bit more fluidly now, so that's digital effects. But anyway, I love the special effects they used for Grogu. Grogu still has that charm as he did in the show, and there are a couple of moments where I got that got a good chuckle out of me because of what Grogu does. He's a child. He's a baby. He's a child in a war, in war zones and different environments. It's fun to watch. Next one I want to talk about, the action. The action is great in this movie. I love the action. Easily one of its greatest strengths. There are a lot of hand-to-hand choreography that showcases the talents of the stuntmen who portray Din Djarin in the majority of the film. The two main stuntmen and that stand in as body doubles for Din Djarin are Lateef Crowder and Brandon Wayne. They also were the huge stand-ins throughout the majority of the show. Pedro Pascal is the voice of Din Djarin, but because of his popularity and his constantly being casted in so many other different properties, his schedule is very limited, which is useful for him. It was useful for him for the fact that Mando's character had a helmet on for basically 99% of the show, of the series, and in the movie itself. But it's actually the talents of Lateef Crowder and Brandon Wayne, who are the body stand-ins, that make the character of Din Djarin come to life with their fighting skills. I'm so glad that the filmmakers finally decided to credit these two in the beginning credits of this movie. And I just have to say, Hollywood, give more credit and recognition to stunt performers. They are the reason that stunts and action scenes can be accomplished. Give them more credit and give them top billing as well. They deserve it. well deserving. It's about time that we're going to get a best stunts category in the Oscars. If they haven't, if I'm correct about that, I think I think they have a best stunts category in the Oscars now coming up soon, which is long overdue. But anyway, back to the action of this movie. It's an action in the Star Wars movie. It's going to be great. There's a range of different weapons used in action sequences, such as guns, knives, clubs, hands. It's pretty fun. It's unique. The film does provide it prevents a wide selection of monsters and how differently they fight as well. The biggest question that I never thought I ever wanted to think of that this movie answered was, what does a Hutt fighting look like? What does a Hutt look like fighting? Answer. Imagine a big muscular slug crawling towards you at almost running pace and body slamming you. It's kind of scary, but also pretty unique. I like it. Some action scenes stand out from the rest and have, some credibility for uniqueness. Some action scenes have good locations and use their geography to their advantages. For example, the beginning sequence of this film takes place. There's a fight that takes place in a snow fortress, and then underneath a bunch of AT-AT walkers, and then inside an AT-AT walker itself. So if action and fight scenes are what you want in movies, then this movie delivers, especially for a Star Wars movie. I think that's kind of a no-brainer. Action in a Star Wars movie, it kind of goes hand to hand like peanut butter and jelly, or ketchup and pickles for some people. But anyway, sorry, I had to call out my brother for enjoying pickles and ketchup. It works for some. But anyway, the action is really good. I love it. Next one I want to talk about a huge key factor for The Mandalorian itself. Let's talk about the music. What more can be said about Ludwig Göransson? I apologize if I mispronounce his last name, but what more can be said about him other than the fact that he never misses the mark with his music? I was incredibly relieved and excited when I heard that Ludwig was coming back to do the score for this movie. He created all the themes and scores for seasons 1 and 2 of the show. He collaborated with Joseph Shirley for the score in the Book of Boba Fett show. And then Joseph Shirley was the main composer for season 3 of The Mandalorian. I don't know why Ludwig didn't come by. Maybe because of his collaborations with other filmmakers and other projects. But he was absent for season 3 of The Mandalorian. And it kind of showed because, in all honesty, the music for season 3 was lacking and it didn't have the same feelings evoked in the past 2 seasons. No disrespect to Joseph Shirley, and I'm sure that he did his absolute best to try to replicate or come close to Ludwig's style, but Ludwig himself has such a creative mind that brings life to every single scene he scores. And not just with The Mandalorian, but with all of his projects. If you listen to his soundtracks, his albums, his style is unique and different for every scene. He can create unique themes and motifs for every moment and still make the music feel like it fits into an overarching theme. That's the case for every single movie and project and show that he's been a part of. His music fits into the same established universe, especially with Star Wars. With The Mandalorian, the theme of The Mandalorian, the main motif, it feels like it fits into the Star Wars universe, but it has its own flair. And then every single scene, every character, every environment has its own music to accompany it. So I'm really glad that Ludwig came back. I was relieved when I heard that people were raving about his music. I was like, yes, let's do it. The first 10 minutes of the movie's score definitely brings me back to watching the very first episode of The Mandalorian in November of 2019. Um, Again, all you have to listen to are the flutes, the low flutes. I can't remember what kind of flute it is, but the do 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 do. You all you need to do is just hear that those notes in the beginning part of the movie, and you know, okay, we're gonna Ludwig is going to have some pretty good music, and he sure does. He mixes synthetic music with orchestral music. He's blending authentic instruments with the technical. Some moments in the movie have, background or diegetic like sound effects mixed into the music, or even providing tempos and themes to the music. Example, there's a moment where there's an alarm blaring through a facility, and that alarm is used as a shift in the music, and it starts off as the tempo for the song, for like the music, and then as it progresses, more notes and instruments are added on top of it. And before you realize, oh wait, this is actually an alarm that was used in a scene. It's really cool. The score is adrenaline pumping for action sequences and tense moments, but then it can be soft and mellow and reflective in slower moments. There's one specific one specific track, Shikari, I believe that's the correct pronunciation. The Shikari track has become the most recognizable and best of this movie's soundtrack. It's the synthetic introduction to a whole new world. It is it's the definition, is what I would call the definition of like science fiction music, while also feeling like a part of the Star Wars universe. And I've seen many people draw back on this piece of music when they praise Ludwig's work in this movie. Also, I love how Ludwig Göransson experiments and tries to come up with different ways to create captivating music that serves the scenes it accompanies. He uses a lot of different techniques, instruments, and soundboards to make his music. As far as I'm aware, he never tends to use the exact same piece of music more than twice. If we hear the same theme or tune or motif, it's presented in a different and unique way. Honestly, if you come to this movie and watch this movie for the action and the music, boom, it delivers and then some. Let's quickly talk about some of the planets and locations. There are essentially 5 planets that the movie takes place around. There is an icy world that, as far as I know, remains unnamed. There is the home world of the Hutts, Nal Hutta. There is a tropical crime lord planet, Shikari. There is an oceanside planet that is home to the New Republic base, Adelphi. And there is the volcanic surface homestead planet for Din and Grogu, Navarro. The only planets that are introduced for the first time are Shikari and the Icy World planet in the beginning of the film. All the others have appeared in previous Star Wars material before this movie, whether it be the Mandalorian show, which Navarro and Adelphi were created in the Mandalorian, or at least it was presented and introduced in the Mandalorian show. And then Nal Hutta was it appeared in other Star Wars media. But what I like what this movie does is that it provides a new approach and areas to this planet. It presents it in a different way that we haven't explored before. Every place and planet is unique and it stands out from each other. I like when planets in sci-fi movies actually look like different lived-in planets. There's vibrancy and environmental differences between them all, such as snow, a tropical, industrial big city, a volcanic, swamp, you name it. Some planets are fun to explore. The icy world, ice planet world in the beginning of the film is my personal favorite because of how it felt to watch in IMAX. When the movie screen switched to the IMAX aspect ratio, the snow-covered planet felt wide and vast, as if I was sitting there in the surface. Overall, they're pretty good locations to visit in the movie. I like them all. All right, let's talk about the sound design. The sound design is fantastic. It's great in this movie. It's loud and impactful where it needs to be without being too loud and overwhelming. especially when watching an IMAX. I love watching IMAX for the sound itself. There are some movies I will talk about that had great sound design, especially with this IMAX speakers down the road. But this is one of those movies that had that once the first blaster gun fired, like it shook our seats, and I just knew, oh yeah, I'm gonna be in for a really good ride. The sound mixing in this movie never really draws your attention away from what is happening in the scene. Nothing is too loud for you to hear what characters are saying, nor is it too quiet to make it feel like you can talk over the movie. That is all of the sound is accredited to the supervising sound editors and the sound mixers. We have David Accord and Matthew Wood as the sound editors, and then we have Christopher Boyes and Bonnie Wild as the sound mixers. Full disclosure, personally, I am a fan of Christopher Boyes' work over the decades. When I first started digging into, or at least learning about filmmaking and falling in love with films and watching how films were made, his name kept popping up with sound design, especially with like the Academy Awards. And so I watched his work a lot and paid attention to how he worked with mixing the sound. So I've always just been a fan of his work, and whenever I see his name attached to a project, I know that the sound is going to be good and top notch. And this is one of those movies. I love I am a sucker for crisp sound effects. This movie has really good, crisp, hard-hitting sound effects. Anything that is hard-hitting and has some weight to it. You feel the weight and the intensity of it, either through the bass of the speakers or just the hard-hitting like impacts to the microphones. For me, listening to crisp sound effects is like listening. It's the equivalent of having a cold glass of water in the middle of the night. You're listening to a cold glass of water in the middle of the night. It just fits so well. When in doubt, trust the sound effects team for a Star Wars movie. They have yet to fail. Now let's talk about, or at least I'm going to talk about the visual effects. Of course, with a Star Wars movie, let alone a sci-fi movie, visual effects are key. It helps you to be immersed in a science fiction setting. The visual effects for this movie is very solid, and I like it. Some moments I really love the digital effects, like the snowy mountaintops, the AT-AT walkers, the assortment of monsters in a gladiator style match, POV shots from the seat or the front part of the cockpit of the ship. Yeah, there's some pretty good digital effects, and I like really good digital effects. There are also plenty of special effects used in this film that I love. Again, like I've mentioned with Grogu before, there's a lot of puppetry used for Grogu and for smaller aliens. There's some really good makeup and prosthetics for alien creatures in crowds and throughout different settings. Animatronics, I love. There's some good animatronic moments used for Grogu. Also, the animatronics and sets that they would build for ships. How they'll have a camera stationed outside of this little set that is supposed to be the front part of a ship, and they just move the ship and angle it while keeping the camera stabilized so they can have some pretty good reactive lighting to the scene. And also there's some pretty good giant droids that were animatronics or like props used. I thought it was pretty good. The volume, a lot of the visual effects have also been done through the volume. I don't know to what extent they used the volume for filming in this movie, but I wouldn't be surprised if they used it for a majority of scenes. All in all, I won't say this movie has the best visual effects in Star Wars, especially for a movie. I'd say it has the same value and quality as seen in the shows, The shows had really good visual effects because a lot of the budget was put into those visual effects. Um, but this movie, it's not the visual effects in this movie is not terrible. I still like the good. It's still good visual effects, and I still like it. I just love the special effects more. Any effect, any special effect or effect that was done in camera and not in post production or on a computer, I applaud very much. I like the extra effort that filmmakers can go to make things happen and make things happen on set of the day that they shoot it, and make life a little bit easier for the post production crew. I have a couple more points to go over in the non spoiler section, but uh, there's a particular character that I was very surprised by, that I enjoyed and loved very much. It is Rata the Hutt. He is a key character in the movie. He is the son of Jabba the Hutt, and Rata was first introduced in the Clone Wars movie in 2008, the animated movie. I remember watching the animated Clone Wars movie and being introduced to him for the first time, thinking, oh, there's a baby Jabba the Hutt. Little did I know that 18 years later, I would see him raised as a fighter and seeing him fight in gladiator style fighting pits. um, this is the first time in Star Wars history, as I am aware of, that shows how a Hutt, which is essentially a giant space slug, to see how a Hutt would fight and move around. We've seen Hutts, slowly crawl around on their, their bellies or their bottom parts of the body, just, slugging around. But I never seen one this agile before. Rata is incredibly agile in the fight scenes. It's kind of scary to think about and witness. Like I wouldn't want to go up face to face with a big giant slug and seeing him sprint at me. um, Not to mention that Rata is also ripped and muscular. It's so weird to see a 6 or an 8 pack on a Hutt, and I never thought I'd see something like that. I don't know if I wanted to see something like that, but I also can't help but love that they decided to try it out. For anybody who wanted to see a muscular and jacked up Hutt, a big giant space slug, here you go. You got one. But despite his, outward appearance, I love what they did with his character. Rata has a longing to be separated from the inhumane crimes of his father. He wants to be his own character, separate himself, and not be tied to Jabba. Jabba was a crime lord that a lot of people feared, and Rata doesn't want to be feared. He wants to be respected. He wants to be, loved and treated as his own, and not just under the shadow of his father. He carries a lot of respect towards others, especially Grogu. He loves playing around with Grogu. He's just fascinated by him. He has a calm voice, which kind of makes you, feel a little bit relaxed around him in a way that you can trust him. He's voiced by Jeremy Allen White, who is best known for the series The Bear, which I've only watched I've only watched a few episodes of The Bear, and I plan to watch it again soon. It's just there's so much to watch and so much to do at home. I will get through it eventually, but I did like Jeremy Allen White's portrayal of Rata. He only portrayed the voice, but there is some credibility. I think he was casted well. And you know what? If Rata the Hutt were ever to come back to other Star Wars projects, I would love to see him again. He definitely was a highlight of this movie and a huge surprise. Last thing I'll talk about in the non-spoilers before I get to the spoiler section. I want to talk about aliens, the species, the monsters. As is commonplace for sci-fi movies, the aliens presented are good. Is it really a science? Well, there are science fiction movies that don't have, a whole lot of aliens or species or monsters, but it's good to have them. There is a good mix of old and new species in the in this movie that were found in the Star Wars universe. Some alien characters and species have been, presented before. We've seen them before. Um, but those that are new or similar to older alien species, they're good. They're unique. They're different. I like seeing the creativity of filmmakers trying to come up with different aliens and designs. And then on top of that, seeing the special effects department coming up with the makeup and the prosthetics and the costumes to make these aliens feel real. It's fun to watch, and I can only imagine what it was like behind the scenes. I would love to visit, behind the scenes and just see what goes into making these aliens possible. Some alien species that have appeared before in other movies, like the Hutts and the An the Anzellans, I believe. Uh, the alien species that Babu Frick is from The Rise of Skywalker. They're explored a little bit more and even given a little more screen time. They're elaborated. Some are going a little bit more in depth of how they work and how they behave, or what their conditions are like. So I like that at least they explore a little bit on some familiar, you know, aliens and species that we've gone to before. So aliens species, the aliens and monsters are good. Action is great. Sound is great. Visual effects are good. I like some of the cinematography, some of the POV shots, fantastic. Music, oh, man, music, you can't go wrong. But yeah, that is all for the non-spoiler section of this movie. So I will give you guys about 15-20 seconds for the spoilers section. So if you do not want to stick around for the spoilers part, thank you for joining. I will see you guys in the next episode. God bless you all. Have a good day. For those who are going to stay, I'll give you guys a little bit of time. All right. You guys ready? Here we go. Here are the spoilers. What I like. Spoiler edition. So, as I did with the K-pop demon review video, and I think what I'm going to do from now on for these episodes, I will go through a story summary, basically tell you guys what the story is about, and then I'll go into some brief bullet points, some moments from the movie that stood out to me and I enjoyed really much. So anyway, here's the story for The Mandalorian and Grogu. The movie begins a few years after the events of The Return of the Jedi. The Empire has been defeated, scattering what remains of the devoted officials across the galaxy. In secret, the Imperial remnants try to build back their empire. The New Republic is tasked to find these fugitives and bring them to justice. Din Djarin and Grogu work independent contracting jobs to find these Imperials. On an icy planet, a group of Imperial leaders intervene about their rise to power, led by Commander Barrow. Din and Grogu infiltrate the base and hunt down Barrow through the slopes of snowy mountains to the pack of AT-AT walkers traversing a trail along the mountainside. Through a fight sequence that travels through an AT-AT walker, Din and Grogu manage to blow up the walkers and Barrow and escape in a U-Wing ship with the help of Zeb. They convene back to the New Republic base set on the planet Adelphi. There, they meet up with Colonel Ward, played by Sigourney Weaver, who handles his contracts and missions. She wanted Commander Barrow alive in hopes that he would have given the Republic new leads to other Imperial fugitives. But luck is on their side, as Ward tells Din about how the twins, the two Hutt siblings to Jabba the Hutt, request his assistance for a mission. Din is asked by the twins to save Rata the Hutt and bring him back to them, in exchange for information regarding a notorious Imperial fugitive by the name of Commander Coin. The Hutts trust him and his skill to pull it off. Before Din and Grogu embark to the Hutties' homeworld of Nalhutta, they are gifted with a reimbursed Razor Crest ship, which was the kind of ship Din flew in the first 2 seasons before it was destroyed. On Nalhutta, Din talks with the twins about where to find Rada the Hutt. He is last known to be on the moon of Shikari, entangled with bad company. If Din brings back Rada to the twins, not only would he receive a large bounty, but the New Republic would get information from the Hutts regarding Commander Coin. They travel to Shikari and ask around locals for the location of Rata the Hutt. Turns out that Rada is a popular cage fighter with years of fighting experience and a reputation amongst the crowds. He fights in the rings, controlled by a man by the name of Janu, until he is able to earn his freedom, which is promised to be soon. Din goes to find Janu, but runs into a scuffle with his henchmen in a bar. Janu meets with Din and tells him about the deal made with Rata, but reveals that instead of granting him his freedom, he plans to have Rata killed in his last match by releasing monsters upon him. Din goes to Rata's cage to warn him about Janu's plan, but is knocked out by a gas. Din then wakes up as a fighter in the rings, having to face off with Rata himself. After a long fight, Din bests Rata, but advocates and demands for his freedom. Janu opens the monster cages and unleashes the collection of monsters instead, forcing Rata and Din to survive the monster mash. When a monster that produces shockwaves interferes with the security shields around the fighting ring, the whole system shuts down and the monsters are unleashed to the crowds. Din and Rata escape, but Rata speeds off on a speeder to escape Din. So he and Grogu chase after Rata and capture him. On the Razor Crest, Rata reveals the secret that Janu is in fact Commander Coin, the Imperial fugitive that the Republic is looking for. Din, Grogu, and Zeb travel to Coin's compound and infiltrate it. They capture Coin and lead on a chase across the sands with stormtroopers following behind. Coin is delivered to Adelphi in the hands of the Republic. Ward warns Din about breaking the deal with the Hutts, and that there can be ramifications due to it. Din travels back to his homestead on Navarro, where he finds a ferry for Rata to be smuggled out safely and makes his own path. Later in their home, that night, Din and Grogu are attacked by another elusive bounty hunter by the name of Embo. Din is captured by Embo and brought before the Hutts on Nalhutta. The twins are angered by the broken agreement and reveal they captured Rata by stopping the ferry he was on. They then have Din's helmet removed, which is a shame for those who take the Mandalorian creed. They must never remove their helmets before any living creature. Din is then dropped into a creature pool underneath the Hutt's throne room, where he has to fend off small water creatures and then a massive water dragon snake. All the while, Grogu has tracked Din to Nalhutta with the help of the little alien droid smiths that are known as Anzellans, what Babu Frick is from The Rise of Skywalker. Grogu and the Anzellans infiltrate the Hutt's palace through the series of pipes until they get to the monster pool where Din is surviving. Grogu creates an opening for Din with an explosive and he is able to escape, but not before he gets poisoned by the monsters he fought. Upon coming back to the Anzellans' ship, it is too small for Din to fit in, so he decides to stay behind and cover their escape by fighting all who were sent by the Hutts to kill them. Upon defeating the droids and henchmen, the poison in Din's system paralyzes him and comes close to killing him. Grogu manages to stay behind while the Anzellans escape, and he watches over Din while he is unconscious. Grogu uses the Force to heal Din's wounds, but he still remains unconscious and incapacitated. Days pass and Grogu takes care of Din by feeding him, giving him water, and creating a mud hut for him to take cover in, all while he is still unconscious from the poison. Grogu ventures out and comes across a fisherman in the swamplands. The alien fisherman creates a remedy for Grogu to use on Din. Upon fully recovering from the remedy, Din and Grogu come across the broken down ship that was used to ferry Rata. Inside, they fight 3 Armani fighters and make the decision to defeat the Hutts and save Rata. They gear up with weapons they can find and fly the ship to the Hutt Palace. After breaking through the defenses and fighting off 2 giant sentry droids, Din and Grogu make it to the throne room. There, Din fights Embo, while Grogu frees Rata from the entrapment, holding him. Rata fights the twins until the trapdoor breaks, causing all 3 to fall in. Grogu, using the Force, lifts Rata out of the trapdoor, and all 3 of them escape, leaving the twins to be devoured whole by the giant dragon snake. Embo escapes, having ended his ties and contract to the Hutts. The New Republic arrive in X-Wing ships to fight the Hutts and blow up the palace. The Anzellans told the New Republic about Din and Grogu's danger, so they brought a fleet with them for the rescue. With the Hutt Palace destroyed, everyone rendezvous back at the Aldelphi base. Rata decides to stay and help aid the New Republic, while Din is able to take Grogu out on the Razor Crest for another supposed adventure and mission. That's the story. My goodness, man, there's trying to, not stumble over my words with all the different alien names and character names was quite a challenge for sure. I'm sure you guys probably got a chuckle from me, stumbling over it, but hey, what can you expect, huh? Let me get a quick thing of water before we get into what I really like about the movie. Okay. So, I like the opening text, mainly because it's accompanied by Mando's flute thing. I also like the first opening shot. After the text, it fades into a slow push towards the table of Imperial fugitives in the snow compound. I like the designs of the snowtroopers in the area, especially the area around their mouths and the filters to their helmets. It's more like black, and it almost feels like it's been like pulled off or charred off or anything. It's a unique design for the snowtroopers. I like them. I like Mando's intro. He is taking out stormtroopers in a storage room of some sort. We barely see him in the shadows as he's walking around and, beating all these snowtroopers. It reminds me of the beginning of John Wick Chapter 2, when John Wick is taking out these guys in this car shop in the shadows. That's what it feels like. The music incorporates the alarms happening in the building. It starts with the alarms, which the characters react to, and then Ludwig adds more of his charm and skill to create the score for the scene. I like the moment when Mando uses his flamethrower at the entrance of the meeting place. The flames hit the ground first and then consumes the 2 stormtroopers at the entrance. I like that little scene. At least I like the little part. I like the POV shots of the mouse droid crawling around the floors quickly, watching stormtroopers get shot and fall, which then runs into Grogu, who uses the Force to crush the droid. I love those POV shots. I like the moment when a stormtrooper is facing off with Grogu outside in the snow, and Mando, or Din Djarin comes, he rises up on a snow walker behind the stormtrooper. The walker is hidden behind the trooper, and the camera drops down and tilts up. It's keeping the trooper centered in the frame, but now Din is on the walker, on a walker and is in the background. I like that. I like how they did that. The at scuffle. I like the at sequence with, Din and Grogu scrambling underneath the legs to fighting inside the at itself. I love the scale of the scene. They make the walkers feel heavy. You see how slow they move. There's actually weight to them. They actually feel big and monstrous, especially when one walker gets detonated on the top and it falls off the edge of the snow canyon. I love that you can see how slowly the at falls in the wide shot. There's a wide shot of looking down at the canyon and you see the walker fall. I don't know. At least it actually feels like they're adding some believable physics to, the momentum of these walkers, which is great. I like the geography of where Mando and Grogu travel through the scene. It gives more credit to the scale of the scale and scope of the scene. I like the long take that takes place inside the AT-AT. When Mando barges in and kills all the troopers, the camera starts at the head of the walker. It travels through the main area towards the door to the side, and then tracks Mando as he fights his way to the front. I love one takes scenes, and it was a pretty good one take. Also, this isn't too spectacular, but I really like how they put some effort into making the lighting on top of the AT-AT believable. When characters are on top of it, the light is more harsh on their helmets. It's a lot more bright. Uh, they are standing in front of either a green screen or the volume, but at least they try to add more dynamic lighting to that small section. I like the effort. I see the effort, and I congratulate you guys for doing that. I love the credits. After I love the credits. I think this is the first Star Wars movie to actually have um, the production credits in the beginning of the film. Usually they're all the way at the end. This whole sequence, it's very reminiscent of like the opening for the Top Gun films. You know, like the ships are flying to the Adelphi base in the sunset, like the sun's in the background. The warm color grading of the whole scene. There's mechanics and ship workers running and working across the landing pads, working on ships, grabbing things, pushing things, you name it. The text for the credits showing up in places on the screen that it reminds me a whole lot of Top Gun. I wonder if they even used the same font for the text. I'll have to rewatch it again when it's out on Disney Plus or on DVD, and just look for it myself. Um, but I like the credits sequence. It's pretty fun. Um, I like how Imperial targets, like the Imperial fugitives, their targets are marked in the form of cards. Uh, with like Din either hands back or takes a bunch of other cards with names on, like faces and names of these Imperial fugitives. It's kind of funny. It's more like a deck of fugitives. It's like, pick a fugitive, any fugitive, just not that one. um, I like the dynamic between Din and Grogu, especially in the Razor Crest 2.0, when Din is saying, "Don't touch anything," or he places Grogu in his seat and straps him in. I'm like, oh, that's such a dad moment right there. I love the fun little POV from inside the pilot's chair while the ship is taking off. I am a sucker for stationary POV shots, whether it's inside or on the vehicles. Like inside or on top of the vehicles are best, especially. Yeah, I'll share a little bit more later, but I like how Nal Hutta, the planet Nal Hutta, looks like fungi and mold. Um, there's a bunch of wide shots flying above the surface and flying through a bunch of what looks like trees and stumps. It looks like things that would grow out of a swamp. It's great environmental storytelling and just development. It's pretty good. I like the design of the droid guards for the palace at Nal Hutta. It's a mixture of old separatist battle droids mixed with armor and ragged clothing. They even have worn down, surface like metal across their whole bodies and everything. I liked it. I thought they looked pretty cool. I like the inside of the Hutt Palace. They look like slug tunnels. They're big and massive. They're just covered like with dirt and muck. There's a moment where a Hutt crawls out of a covering or a hole uh, and slides down like the dirt. It's almost like it just came out of a cocoon of some sort, and it just slides out on the dirt. And I don't know. It's so weird. It was very weird to see that, but it's actually kind of great to see a little bit more of development and exploration into the Hutts. There's a moment that makes me chuckle by the nature of the dialogue itself. It's when Din is talking with the twins about finding Rata. The twins want Din to find Rata on Shikari. I almost said Shakira. No, Shikari. So Din says something lines like he needs an image of him, and he asks somewhere on the lines of, "What does he look like?" And I don't know. I chuckled because in the back of my mind I was like, "Gee, I don't like what does Rata the Hutt look like? Gee, I don't know. He'll probably look like the only Hutt in a crowd of Huttless aliens. I want to. I don't know. Just a little bit of a thought there, Din. So I love Shikari. Shikari is a very unique place. The music for Shikari when it's introduced, it's the best of the music is the best of the movie. It's like a big city design. I love the big city designs of the planet. It's not Coruscant 2.0. Coruscant is more of a skyscraper type of planet. Shikari is more of a mix of like Los Angeles and Tokyo. I love the mix of the neon colors and the nighttime across the surfaces and even walking through the city. The scale of the city and the planet are big when Din is walking around. I wish they would have explored a little bit more, but I imagined that particular place was meant to be fleshed out a little bit more in an episode of season 4, a supposed season 4. It's funny to watch a small alien with multiple arms running a food stand being voiced by Martin Scorsese. I liked that they brought Martin Scorsese in for a voice role. I like Rata's introduction in the fighting pits and even just his introduction in the movie in general. He's a great fighter. I like the music. His music motif is his theme kicking in when he's introduced, his weapons, and how he fights. He moves quick for a giant slug, and again is more jacked than I think anyone never thought about. I like how he wins against this gladiator fighter by falling on top of him and crushing him. It's scary to think about. Like, choose your final move. Choose your finishing move. I choose body slam, and then get crushed to death by a big giant space slug. I like the fight scene in the bar when Din is looking for Lord Janu. There's a lot of good hand-to-hand combat. Again, it's great. There's some really good, impactful sound effects. I think there was a moment where there was a small caged creature that is accidentally blasted and killed, leaving like feathers and fur of some sorts in the air. It's a fun little like joke or a little visual gag that got a good chuckle out of me. And I also like how Din, there was this brute that kept mocking Din when he was asking about Janu. He has like these horns, like some curved horns on the top of his head, and Din slices off a part of the horn on that brute at the end of the fight scene. That was pretty cool. I like the whole I like the sequence in the moment when Din, wakes up in the fighting rings after he's knocked out, trying to release Rata. When he doesn't have his jetpack or his weapons, and he's just walking towards the entrance into the fighting pit. I love how the chanting of the crowds get louder and louder as he gets closer to the entrance. Great sound design. I like the fight between Din and Rata. There is a moment, however, I had to wonder, how did Din survive a Hutt falling on top of him? Now, granted, he has armor. He has pretty thick armor, known as Beskar armor. Beskar armor is one of the most toughest pieces of material in the Star Wars universe. But I don't know. It doesn't cover 100% of his body. So were the elbows or his hands and maybe even his hips okay under the weight of a big giant Hutt? I don't know. Well, apparently he is okay. It's just more like it was just more of a second thought, I guess. Anyway, I love the monster mash moment. I love the moment when the monsters are unleashed to fight Rata and Din. And fun fact, when you pay attention to the monsters, these are the designs of these monsters are the same monsters from the Star Wars chessboard that was found in A New Hope, in the very first Star Wars movie. Even the layout of the fighting ring itself is the same design as the chessboard, the circular board. The monsters attack each other in the same way as they did when they are shown in the chessboard scene. Uh, Even some of the monster takedowns are the same, like the giant monster that grabs the little one and just slams on the ground. I like the little nod. Like I think it's a whole fun. The whole sequence is great. Um, I love the pause in the crowd as the electric grid fails and then the monsters create mayhem. I just love that little, like, yeah, quick little seconds of tension and then everything, all chaos breaks loose. Um, I like some of the POV shots of the speeders during, the chase scene trying to catch up to Rata. Um, I find it funny to see Rata carried in Mando's ship. He's carried in the big giant hammock just suspended above the air. Can't move or anything. I like it. I think it's pretty funny. I like the design of Coin's compound on the beach when Din finds out that Janu is Coin. The design of his place looks like something you would find in, like a Mar-a-Lago type of place. It's like a beach house resort. I think it's pretty cool. It's unique. It's different. The fight to capture Coin is fun. Tight hallway fights, pretty good. The music in the chase scene across the sands are reminiscent of the music used in the first season. It made me feel a little nostalgic. I liked how it was kind of like a callback to those times. And again, more POV shots from the cockpit of the Razor Crest and the aerial chase scenes like happening in the sky. It includes also some stationary shots on top of the ship, which I'm a sucker for. I love stationary camera shots added on top of vehicles. I have to cut ahead now to like a little bit of ways into the story to Embo's introduction at Din's homestead. I love the introduction of Embo. Embo was one of my favorite bounty hunter characters growing up while watching the Clone Wars animated series. That's where he debuted in. And, overall, I liked his live action debut. I think it's pretty good. But his introduction is really great because, one, it's at night, it's raining, there's no music for the first half of the scene. There are some POV shots of Embo walking across the ground to the homestead. Have you noticed that there's a pattern of me loving POV shots? They're so good. I love the tension between building when Din realizes that someone is out there. I love the fight between the two of them in the home. Embo uses his hat as a shield to block blaster bolts and even some blocks and punches. And if I remember correctly in the theaters, there was no dialogue spoken, which I love. I love when, filmmakers and writers can write scenes without any dialogue. It's pretty good. I like Grogu's little gear up scene as he's getting ready to go and save Din at Nal Hutta. I love the puppetry used for the Anzellans in their ship. I mean, again, I love these special effects. I like the effect. I love the lengths that they will go to make things happen and not just create them all on a computer. When Mando is brought before the twins and his helmet is removed, there is a moment when one of them threatens Grogu. And this is where I have to praise Pedro Pascal for being a great actor. His face goes from being carried with shame of having his helmet removed to being filled with anger quickly, and his defensive mode kicks in when Grogu is brought up by the Hutts. This is the only scene in the movie where Pedro Pascal, I believe, was actually visible on set. Like, this is the only time that you actually get to see his face. But, for the short little time that, we get to see his face, he does act very well. So I have to applaud him for that. Also, this is okay. I have a little side note. I'll try not to go too far into this, but this movie has a few instances where characters talk about the longevity of Grogu's lifespan and the harsh truth about him having to outlive Din. I wish that the movie dove deeper into this theme. The biggest strength of the Mandalorian show is the dynamic between Din and Grogu. Their bond is what drew a lot of people towards the show and where a lot of its praises come from. Over time, it shows. Over time, it kind of shows that that the writers and most importantly Disney are kind of afraid to take risks and venture out more into the idea of letting go of this bond. The first 2 seasons was about Din finding a Jedi to train Grogu and take care of him. He gave Grogu Huge spoiler alert for those who have not watched the Mandalorian show. So just skip ahead like 10 seconds. But Grogu, Din Djarin, he gives Grogu over to Luke Skywalker, despite the love and connection that they formed together. It was a huge moment. This whole moment of them having to separate from each other. It was a huge moment for both characters because it forced them to be apart and presented an opportunity to discover more of their value and worth without having each other around. But then, shortly after that moment, in another show, they are quickly reunited, which kind of it was kind of undoing all of the emotion that was built up through the 2 seasons. It was just kind of uh, done and spent and done, and it was just quickly turned around like that. The third season, because of it, felt empty and lacking in the charm and emotion that the 2 seasons had before it. Din and Grogu are back, but where do they progress? Where do they progress, story and character wise? I don't know. There wasn't a sense of progression for their relationship at all in the third season. It felt like they were back together because it was safer and easier to work with for the writers and the executives. So, because of the popularity and the profitability of the dynamic between these two, there's probably not a chance that Disney and Lucasfilm will want to end any outlets and stories for these characters. I mean, if they can still draw in money with them, they will still use them to earn money. I am a personal advocate for writers and filmmakers to take risks with beloved characters, or just characters in general. Challenge yourself and the characters you love by placing them in situations that force them and you outside your comfort zone. See what the story can be capable of and what values are important to you. Even if one of those risks is separating a character from another, whether it be by death or not, there is a great chance, an opportunity to discover who this character is after the fact. Is their identity only tied to another prop or character, or can they make it on their own? That being said, I wish that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni went in the direction of Din Djarin having to come to terms with his mortality and life with Grogu, and how Grogu will most likely live longer than they will have ever been together. It would have been great if Din made a heroic sacrifice for his son, ensuring that his son's future is secured through his own life. Through like the giving up of his own life. Then Grogu would have to learn to let go of Din, his connection to Din, but he also would still remember how his life was given many chances because of Din, his father. It would have been a great opportunity for them to explore. I would have loved that. But anyways, it doesn't look like that will be the case with Star Wars under Disney currently right now, or at least under Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. So anyway, side tangent over. That was just my big thought for the movie. But anyway, let's talk about another thing. The water pit scene with those water little small creatures and the water dragon is tense, and I love it. I really like the design of the water dragon. It reminds me of one of those like white pythons some people keep as pets. Even like the snoot or the snout, like the mouth kind of looks very similar to a python. But something is a little bit creepy. Each tooth in the water dragon's mouth moves like an individual knuckle. So it's like you can see it move individually around in like disproportionate areas, and like, I like the design of that. It's pretty creepy, but hey, unique. I like the moment when Mando is fighting off the droids and the henchmen to let Grogu and the Anzellans escape in their small ship. I love the somber and slowed down theme playing in the background of this scene. There's like multiple cuts and shots of Din fighting the droids and the henchmen, accompanied by the sound, the sound becoming softer and muffled as it progresses. The music becomes the only thing clear and strong. And another thing I think what they did great that with the sound becoming more muffled as the scene progressed, it's sort of like it was mirroring the poison settling into Din's blood, making him less likely to stand and fight anymore. I thought that was pretty good. Um, so when Grogu stays behind to take care of an unconscious Din, there is a really good passage of time shot with the camera at an upward angle towards the sky. And I love passage of time like shots like that, especially when like you see the sun passing over very quickly and the clouds moving over and then it turns into night and then back to day. I like when they do stuff like that. I like the whole montage of Grogu on his own, exploring the planet and keeping himself alive. It's a great change of pace with all the action and all the tension that's come before. It just kind of forces everybody to breathe and calm down. But even but during this whole montage, like when Grogu's wandering around the swamp and just exploring, fighting with fireflies or playing around in the water and mud, my mom leaned over to me and said, "It's they're preparing him to be the next Yoda," and I was like, "Yeah, that actually definitely makes me think of Yoda and Dagobah." I think that was intentional, so I like it. There's a funny scene where Grogu builds a little hut, a little mud covering hut to try to hide Din in. Goodness gracious, these names. Grogu uses the Force to push Mando inside the hole, but his helmet keeps hitting the end of the mud hut, either through a rock or a stump of the tree, leaving his legs exposed out in the open. Like Grogu pushes him multiple times and there's multiple thunks, thunk, thunk, thunk. It got a genuine laugh out of me. I like that. Especially because the music is building when Din is being pushed in and then it cuts off as he hits his head. It's funny. I like the scene where Grogu's at the alien fisherman's hut because alien Embo and his alien dog show up. The dog creature, I can't remember its name, but it sniffs around the area where Grogu is. And I love the shots of Embo slightly turning his head towards the stack of boxes that Grogu is hiding behind. It builds a little bit of tension. So when Din is healed with the remedy that the fisherman gave Grogu, I like the line he says to Grogu where he says, "The old protect the young and the young protect the old. This is the way." It's a really good heartfelt sentiment between them. And I really liked the third act of this film. It's a whole lot of fun. I'll just from the breaking of the borders of the palace with the ship to fighting the two giant mech droids by tearing up wires inside them, to the twins pleading for their lives as Mando is approaching them in the throne room with his pulse rifle, to Rata fighting his aunt and uncle. I never knew I wanted to see Hutts fighting each other, like giant earthworms whacking each other with their tails. It's pretty entertaining. To the fight between Din and Embo, to the twins being eaten alive by the water dragon, which a little fun thing, a little fun facts I like with the twins' demise of being eaten by the water dragon. As the water dragon dives back into the water, you can see the two giant lumps in its throat. The twins have become a lovely meal for this water dragon. I love the cameos of the X-wing pilots when the New Republic fleet comes by to destroy the Hutt Palace. For those who may have not known, there are a few key directors or creators that worked on the Mandalorian show that they cameo as X-wing pilots. You have Dave Filoni, you have Deborah Chow, you have Rick Famuyiwa. I'm sorry, Rick. I mispronounced your last name. And then you have Lee Isaac Chung. When I first watched, when I was watching this movie and I saw their faces, I was like, wait a minute, those are directors of the show, throughout the seasons. I love that they bring, the directors in who are probably fans of Star Wars themselves to be inside a Star Wars movie and being part of these projects. It's a fun little nod because they did that before in seasons 1 and 2 as well, where directors of these episodes would come and cameo as an X-wing pilot. It's great. It's fun. It's fun to see that. And of course, I love the final moments of the film with Grogu sitting in Din's lap as they fly away in the Razor Crest. It makes, when he puts Grogu into his lap, it makes me think of, placing my own kids, like letting my own kids sit in my own lap. I love that moment because I can relate to it. From a dad, I love it, and I love when I see dads being dads. So anyway, that's the spoiler section. What I like about the movie. Huh. Well, to conclude this all together, I had a good time watching this movie. Is it my favorite? No, it's not my favorite Star Wars movie. Uh, it's not my least favorite. Uh, my favorite movie, like my favorite Star Wars movie, will be reviewed on another day down the line. I think some of you guys will be surprised by which one it actually is, but again, that's another day. But given that I was able to take my mom to go watch this movie in IMAX, I did not expect to have as much fun as I did. Um, the movie does leave a lot to be desired in some areas, but if you fell in love with the show and the characters, it's a safe bet, and it's a safe bet that you guys will like this movie. I like it. It's fun. It's good. So let me end this episode by sharing you guys my favorite character. Who is my favorite character of this movie? Surprise, surprise. Rata the Hutt. I did not expect to be rooting for a Hutt in the Star Wars universe. I like his nobility and his effort to make his own way out of the shadow of his father. And what is my favorite scene of this movie? My favorite scene? It was kind of a close call. The runner-up was when Din stayed behind to fight the droids and the henchmen to let, Grogu and the Anzellans escape in their ship. I liked that scene. That's a close second up, but my favorite scene easily has to be the monster mash scene in the fighting pits on Shikari. From the moment Din wakes up from being knocked out, to the chanting of the crowd, to the fight between him and Rata, to the absolute mayhems of the monsters battling it out, to the callback of the Star Wars chessboard and the monster pieces themselves, to the breakout and panic over the crowds when the electric grid fails. This scene had it all, and it is a whole lot of fun. It's easily my favorite of the whole movie. So, that is what I like about Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu. I only recalled everything I was able to watch in the theater. I know that sometime soon, if not already, the movie will be released in digital fronts, and will soon be released on Disney Plus, if it hasn't already been. I will plan to make another quick review about this movie later when I am able to sit down and analyze the scenes better and pick up even more details and things to share. But that's somewhere down the line. Wow. Wow. Compared to my K-pop Demon Hunters review, this this review went a whole lot smoother and a whole lot better. I hope you guys thought so too. But as of now, I hope you all enjoyed hearing my takes and appreciations for this film. That is all that I had to share with you all for now. I will see you guys all in the next episode. God bless you all, and have a good day.